Hi everyone, welcome again. This is Dami. Today's video is going to be how to mix snare drum. And there is only one way to mix snare drum, and that is your way, provided that you know what you're doing. The one way to mix snare drum is basically what you want the snare drum to achieve in the mix. But we can go over some fundamentals. I'm going to show you how I mix the snare drum in this particular song here, the kind of sound I was going for, and then why I made the decisions that I made. Just join me in Pro Tools. Thank you. All right, so here we are in Pro Tools, and then let's just go ahead and play maybe the kick and the snare. Okay, so the snare drum sounds pretty good. The snare top sounds very well recorded. During tracking, this was already kind of EQ'd and all of that, perhaps even compressed, not sure, but EQ, I'm sure of that because I did it. So I think the first thing for this particular song is the snare sounds good, but later on when I was mixing, and because it's my song too, right, I wanted maybe a fat snare sound. So though I use this one, is a huge part of the snare sound. So the first thing I wanted to do was to clean up. There were a lot of ghost notes with the snare drum. So in most cases, I left the bottom to pick up a lot of those ghost notes, especially at the beginning of the song. So let's see what I was doing here. The snare sounds good, like I said. Okay, so I'm using the gates here, that's for sure. But I was still able to keep some of my low end. So a few things right here. There's a high pass filter here. I'm rolling off about 160, and then also a low pass rolling up up until 8K. And then it seems like I'm compressing here as well. Quite a lot, almost about 5-6 dB here. But let's go through the EQ move. So around 1.5, I'm boosting just a little bit here, and then I'm cutting about 5 dB at about 560. I want to hear what that sounds like. Okay. Not that bad, to be honest. And then I'm boosting 184 here. So let's bypass this. And then following that, you can definitely hear that sound right here. So that's 2K doing some cleanup. Yeah. Bypassed. So okay, I hope you can hear that. Break it in. Cleaning it up, right? That frequency is bad right here. Yeah, that's pretty nasty. Okay, so that's that. Basically EQ. So that is that on here. And then the snare bottom mic. I'm shaping that a lot. It sounds good, like I said. I loved it. Because most of this, of course, we lost volume. Most of this is done in context, really, because by itself that sounds good, and there's no reason why I should remove that, to be honest. But I have other snare samples here that I introduced, which I'm going to play so you can hear them. Let me actually do one after the other, right here. So even with this one too, seems like there's some EQ stuff going on. Yeah, just some boost here at 5K. I'm using the air gain here, and then at 2.5 as well. And that sounds really nice. And then we have this one, which is the fat one, I believe. Yeah, almost like a kick drum. So I'm EQing the top right there. Now let's play all snare together now. that's without the low end one, but with it. Yeah, so that's really where the sound, and I didn't really roll off a lot. I didn't roll use the high pass filter here. So now all of this snare drum, of course, they don't just playing it the way it sounds right now cannot compete in the song really, right? So this is where my processing, my snare drum processing comes in. So I group all of the snare into what I call the snare comp, and then I affect them as a whole. All right, let's hear what this is doing. Okay. So I'm rolling off, I'm boosting around, what's it called here? Let me mute the kick. 3 dB at 12K. Yeah, that sounds really good. 3 dB. What else again? So I'm also removing some nasty frequency here. And this can happen a lot in the snare drum in this range. So you always want to watch for it because it's clashing with your vocal. It's sitting right where the vocal is. Those are the two instruments that really take up the space there. If you don't fix it here, it might be hard in the mastering stage. If the mastering engineer needs to control that frequency range, it might be really tough. Or for some reason, say the mastering engineer wants to boost the vocal in there, but the snare is also in that range. So pushing those frequency might not be pleasant. So here I'm dipping it out because it sounds bad. And I will mention that's usually the area that I'm boosting on snare drum, like 200-ish. I'm boosting to get some low end, and then sometimes 1.5 to like 3K on snare drum. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that's why I'm using a narrow Q here to get rid of that. So let's bypass it in and out. Okay, so there's also some at 100 right here. I'm boosting 1.3 because you can hear the weight that we're adding to the snare drum. So that's basically clean up. Always important to always check personally. I check with my overhead. Let me mute the snare drum now. I'm gonna mute it. Okay, so a lot of the snares coming from the snare mics themselves. Okay, so next on there, it's EQ. So cleaning up some of the top frequency here. Most times this is really in the mix, to be honest, because by itself, listening now, it sounds good. So that's why solo is good, but you don't want to always stay in solo for so long, because that can really just mess you up. You make things sound good in solo, but then it doesn't work in the mix. So this is just controlling some frequency. I'm going to boost it for demonstration purposes so we can hear those frequencies. This is 5. Okay, so removing that, and then a little bit there as well. So in and out, let's hear it. I'm gonna go to maybe a different part of the drum sound where things were a little bit heavy. Okay, now I have the BX. Okay. All right, so this is where I'm doing my boost now, because I've controlled it. Now I want to enhance. I've been removing things that are bad. Now I'm trying to enhance it more. So here I'm boosting 7K because I've gotten the snare drum to sound where I want it to sound like. And here, 2.3, I'm boosting about 4 dB. Here, around 369, maybe I copied the same plugin because that's the same frequency looks like. And then here at 192, like I mentioned, I'm trying to get more bottom end from the snare. bypass, bring it in. You would hear, let me boost this frequency right here. Maybe that's, I'm only cutting it slightly, but there's something going on there. Yeah. So far, let's bypass. Bring it in. Exactly what I'm going for. The bottom end, we're getting that. Like I mentioned, yeah, and this is interesting, saturation. I'll begin to think of saturation when I have tried to use maybe volume to push up the snare, but it's still not working. So I'm like, let me use saturation, because the more you push it, the more it's going to start. It gives you less headroom, especially on your mix bus. So for snare drum particularly, that's when I'll begin to start thinking of maybe using maybe saturation. But sometimes I'll just use saturation out of the gate because I want to use it. But sometimes it's to also just fix maybe a problem. So in this case, after I've EQ'd, compressed on the individual channel, I'm bringing the saturator here. BH2, let's see what that is doing. Yeah, that's so nice, right? Wow, that's nice. And what you can hear also is the air right here, this air whatever button right here, and I cranked it all the way to the top, and it sounds like it sounds really really good. I wish there's a part that the snare is playing. Anyways, I think that's fine. Okay. Right, yeah, the saturation is doing so much there that I like, and I hope you guys can hear it. Let me play it again. Right, so then the next thing, I'm gonna bring in the H comp here, the compressor I'm using. Right there, right. That's that energy, right? That's what you the sound, because by itself, it sounds okay, especially the saturation that we used really brought the snare drum to life, but it's able to bring to life what we've done previously. Because if I was to bypass a lot of this move and then let's just hear this too. You can hear some ring, bad frequency, but let's bring it in. Right. So here I'm using a slow, medium to slow attack, and then kind of fast release here. I'm using the punch slightly. You don't want to go too crazy with the punch on here. 4:1 analog is off, and then compressing about 3 dB. Also, let's hear it again. Oh, not even up to 3 dB, yeah. So when I get my snare to sound good, the way I want it to sound, I'm also playing the overhead, so I think we're hearing that. Okay, without the overhead and kick, let's just hear. Then I'm using the reverb plugin. This is really song dependent. In this case, I'm cranking it up a lot to fill space. It was intentional for this particular song. So I have this room verb here. Let's play that. Let me look for what that plugin is. What plugin I'm using for the room verb for the snare. So it's called drum verb. So it's right here. It's the Valhalla, and then I have snare plate. Okay. Okay, all right, let's go back up. All right, so this is going to the drum room, is going to Valhalla right here, and it's set to cross stick room as a preset ambience. I'm gonna bypass it, dry, and then the decay time is set to 0.5. That's really for like a very confined space. That's kind of what you want to use. And then I have the snare plate here, and what I'm doing to the snare plate is the first plugin on there is the little plate by Sound Toys, and then followed by Decapitator, and I'm driving that a lot. This helps to add, well, that's exactly what's doing, saturation to the reverb. And there's just something it does, aggressiveness, and also it actually cleans it up as well based on the settings I use. So I'm also rolling off here as well because I want it to be clean. And then I'm using 2 seconds decay time. So let's hear that. It's going to be massive. Without the decapitator, bring it in. Right. Listen to the tail. Yeah. All right. So let's just bypass all the plugins. Let's bypass this. Okay. So I think really that snare drum is probably one of the maybe easiest to mix when you have the right snare drum sound. That's the key. It might take time to get a perfect snare drum sound, but then once you get it right, they kind of just sit well quickly in the mix and you don't have to do much. I hope this was helpful on how to mix your snare drum. I know we didn't go into details on compressor settings and stuff, but I showed you the compressor setting that I used. Most times you can get away with medium release depending on the snare, depending on how fast those hits are, right? With this one, we have enough room. So it just depends on things, but you want to focus more on your threshold and how much dB you're compressing. Just maybe want to listen to the sound. Ooh, does that feel good or does it feel bad? Like I said, snare drum isn't that very hard to mix. Once you have the right sound, it becomes easy and feel free to play with different settings. There's no rule. Play with your compressor settings well, and for the EQ, listen to what is bad first, and then enhance after you've done that. After you've cleaned up, then enhance the snare that you're working on. In other cases, I can say this too, there might be other cases where you might want to use a transient shaper, right? Transient shaper on your snare drum. Feel free to, if you're missing that attack and you've done everything that you could with EQ, with compression, you're not getting the attack you need. Maybe try a transient shaper, right? If that doesn't work, again, like I said, is maybe the snare drum sound itself. So that'll be my advice, and don't want this video to be super long on snare drum. Like I said, if you have any questions or comments, please don't forget to leave them in the comment section below. And if you have any suggestions on videos you'd like me to do now and in the future, just let me know. Stay blessed and have a wonderful time recording and mixing. Bye bye.